The vicious whip cracked, opening a fresh gash on Theros's back. He stifled a cry, determined not to give the soulless human taskmasters the satisfaction. Theros and his fellow Andorians slaved away in the claustrophobic mineshafts, chiseling precious ores for their Terran overlords under the baleful glow of flickering lamps. Rage smoldered in Theros's chest as he recalled the day a guard murdered his sister for daring to speak without permission. The humans ruled with unflinching brutality, crushing any hint of defiance. Among the oppressed Andorians, whispered tales painted the Homo sapiens as heartless monsters devoid of mercy or compassion. In hidden corners of the mines, Theros and his brethren established the Andorian Liberation Front. Pilfered mining tools were smelted into crude weapons. Clandestine gatherings plotted an inevitable uprising against the despised humans. ALF spies infiltrated the households of the human elite, gathering critical intelligence to strike at the heart of their dominion. Unknown to the rebels, a rift was growing within the human leadership. Eugene Campbell, an ambitious bureaucrat, increasingly questioned the morality of the Andorian subjugation. Secretly, he organized like-minded officials to develop Project Emancipation, a radical initiative to liberate their alien chattel and welcome them as equals. It was a dangerous gambit that risked their lives in station if exposed. Theros crouched in the shadows outside the perimeter of a fortified government data center. His hand-picked ALF strike team had breached the outer security through a combination of careful planning and slit throats. Now they skull deep in the servers, siphoning classified files that could expose vulnerabilities to hasten the looming revolution. But as the damning data unfurled across the hacked terminal, Theros found himself staring in disbelief at detailed plans for Project Emancipation. The blueprints for their freedom were already drawn by human hands. As the weight of the revelation crashed through the ALF, the supposed evil Terrans took on new dimensions. The truth was far more complex than generations of enmity had led them to believe. Theros's finger hovered over the trigger as he locked eyes with the lone human guard. The man's hand twitched toward his holstered pistol. Sweat beaded on Theros's brow. Every instinct screamed to open fire, to strike a blow against the hated Terran oppressors. But a flicker of doubt stayed his hand. "Stand down, Sergeant." The guard froze at the commanding voice of Eugene Campbell, striding into view, hands raised. "Lower your weapon." The guard hesitated, glancing between Eugene and the armed Andorians. "Sir, they're rebels, terrorists. Protocol states—" "I'm overriding protocol," Eugene snapped. "The time for change has come. These Andorians are no longer our enemies." Theros tensed, searching the human's face for deceit, but Eugene's eyes shone with conviction. Slowly, Theros lowered his rifle. "You would aid our cause? Why?" Eugene met his gaze. "Because slavery is a moral stain on humanity, but violence will only breed more violence. We must forge a new path, together." The guard holstered his pistol as Eugene extended a hand to Theros. A fragile trust bloomed as their fingers clasped, an alliance that could reshape two worlds. But not all shared their vision. In a hidden ALF bunker, Zoltak slammed a fist on the table. "Theros has lost his spine. Trusting humans? After all they've done? It's madness." Theros stood firm before the enraged hardliners. "Blind hatred will only lead to more bloodshed. This is our chance for real change, a future where Andorian children grow up free." Dissent rippled through the ALF ranks. Some nodded slowly, daring to imagine that future. Others spat at Theros's feet, following Zoltak out into the shadows. Eugene faced his own opposition in the halls of power. "The aliens threaten our way of life," Martin Hewitt roared to a cadre of human supremacists. "Campbell's emancipation will destroy everything we've built." "Society built on oppression isn't worth preserving," Eugene argued before the President's Council. "We have a chance to make history, to atone for our sins and forge a better future for all." The President leaned back, brow furrowed. "Your proposal is admirably idealistic, Mr. Campbell, but the practicalities, it would change everything." "Clinging to an unjust status quo poisons us all in the end," Eugene pressed. "We must appeal to the better angels of our nature." After an eternity, the President nodded slowly. "Draft the proclamation. All aliens shall henceforth be granted full rights and citizenship. In the mines and fields, the proclamation's shockwaves rippled through the alien slaves. Some danced with tearful joy. Others stared in guarded disbelief. Most hovered somewhere between giddy optimism and wary cynicism. "Pretty words," one scarred Andorian miner spat. "What do they mean when we still break our backs in their tunnels?" Theros stepped forward, Shara at his side. "Words alone won't erase generations of pain," Theros acknowledged. "But they can be a beginning, a foundation to build a new society." Shara's soothing voice washed over the crowd. "The road ahead is long. We will face opposition from those who fear change. But if we have the courage to trust, to forgive, to work side by side, miracles may arise." Miles away, Eugene pored over transition plans with the newly chartered ETA, reparations, development aid, legal reforms. Each detail was a battlefield, especially with Martin Hewitt's calculating gaze tracking his every move. When Emancipation Day dawned, it was both transcendent and turbulent. The soaring speeches in New York clashed with hurled bricks in Philadelphia, shared tears of elation in Chicago, screams of defiance in Atlanta. Theros and Eugene stood tall through it all, an Andorian rebel and a human bureaucrat, now reluctant partners in an audacious dream. But as the first fireworks painted the sky in dueling streaks of hope and fear, each knew their struggle had just begun. The euphoria of Emancipation Day faded as quickly as the last fireworks glow. Theros and Eugene found themselves mired in the grueling work of reshaping two societies long divided by hatred and fear. In a cramped office overlooking the sprawling alien resettlement camp, Theros pored over relocation requests. His antennae twitched with frustration as he scanned yet another rejection. "They're stonewalling us at every turn," he growled, tossing the datapad aside. Eugene pinched the bridge of his nose, dark circles underlining his eyes. The bureaucracy moves slowly, even in the best of times, and these are far from the best of times. A knock at the door interrupted their commiseration. Shara entered, her face grave. "There's been an incident at the community center." The acrid stench of smoke and charred flesh assaulted Theros as he surveyed the bombing site. Twisted metal and shattered concrete lay strewn across what had once been a symbol of unity. Human and Andorian bodies lay side by side, indistinguishable in death. Eugene's face was ashen as he knelt beside a small, still form. "She can't be more than 7, he whispered, gently closing the child's eyes. Theros clenched his fists, rage and grief warring within him. Who would do this? As if in answer, an angry crowd began to gather at the police cordon. "Alien scum!" someone shouted. "Send them back where they came from!" In the days that followed, Theros watched helplessly as fear and mistrust spread like wildfire. Alien-owned businesses were vandalized. Andorians were spat upon in the streets. The fragile peace they had worked so hard to build crumbled before their eyes. "We have to do something," Theros insisted, pacing Eugene's office. "Make a public statement, show a united front." "It's not that simple," Eugene cut him off, his voice heavy with defeat. "The council is in an uproar. There are calls to halt the entire emancipation process." A knock at the door silenced them both. Kira entered, her journalist credentials prominently displayed. "I may have found something," she said, her voice low and urgent. She spread crime scene photos across Eugene's desk. "Look at the blast pattern. It's inconsistent with known Andorian explosives." Theros leaned in, his antennae quivering. "You think this wasn't us?" "I think," Kira said carefully, "that someone wants us to believe it was." As they digested this revelation, alarms blared throughout the building. Eugene's comm link crackled to life. "Sir, there's been another attack. The resettlement camp. It's gone." Theros and Eugene exchanged a look of horror. Whatever faint hope they had kindled was extinguished in an instant. The real battle, they realized, had only just begun. Theros' antenna twitched as he scanned the crowded street, his eyes narrowing on a hooded figure slipping into an abandoned warehouse. "There," he whispered to Kira, who nodded silently beside him. They crept forward, the acrid stench of industrial waste filling their nostrils. Through a grimy window, they witnessed a scene that made Theros' blood run cold. Kaz, an Andorian they had long suspected of sabotage, stood before Martin Hewitt and Zoltak. The unlikely trio huddled around a crate filled with alien weaponry. "Proof of delivery," Kaz said, his voice muffled but audible. "As promised." Hewitt nodded, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "Excellent. These will serve our purpose well." Zoltak hefted one of the weapons, his eyes gleaming. "With these, we'll show both sides the true cost of unity." Theros's fist clenched. The evidence was irrefutable. Kaz was the traitor responsible for the bombings, his own kind, working to undermine everything they had fought for. A crackle of static in their earpieces signaled Rin's team moving into position. "On my mark," the commander's voice whispered. But before Theros could respond, a floorboard creaked beneath Kira's foot. Kaz's head snapped up, his eyes meeting Theros's through the grimy glass. "Intruders!" Kaz shouted, grabbing for a weapon. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Rin's team burst through doors and windows, plasma bolts sizzling through the air. Theros tackled Kira to the ground as return fire shattered the glass above them. When the smoke cleared, Kaz lay motionless, a smoking hole in his chest. But Hewitt and Zoltak were nowhere to be seen. "They're getting away!" Theros roared, sprinting for the rear exit. But the alley beyond was empty, save for the distant screech of tires. Hours later, Theros stood before the Andorian Council, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his gut. "We have irrefutable evidence of a conspiracy," he said, gesturing to the captured weapons and surveillance footage. "Kaz betrayed us, working with both human and Andorian extremists. We must put aside our differences and work with Eugene's underground to bring these traitors to justice." The council chambers erupted into heated debate, but Theros saw the tide turning. Even the most skeptical members couldn't deny the threat posed by this unholy alliance. Across the city, Eugene pored over financial records, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. When Theros entered, he looked up with grim satisfaction. "I've found it," he said, spreading papers across his desk. A trail linking Hewitt to every major human supremacist group, shell companies, offshore accounts. It's all here. Theros leaned in, his antennae quivering. "And Zoltak?" Eugene nodded. "It appears he made a deal with Hewitt. False flag attacks, designed to inflame tensions on both sides. They're playing a long game, trying to make integration impossible." A knock at the door interrupted them. David Morgan, one of Eugene's most trusted operatives, entered, his face ashen. "Sir, I've infiltrated Hewitt's inner circle," he reported. "They're planning something big, an assassination attempt on both of you at the upcoming Unity rallies." Theros and Eugene exchanged a look. The rallies were crucial to restoring faith in the emancipation process. Canceling them would be seen as a victory for the extremists. "We go forward," Theros said firmly, "but we use ourselves as bait. It's time to spring the trap and expose this conspiracy once and for all." Eugene nodded, his face hardened. "Agreed, let's put an end to this madness." As they began to plan their counterattack, Theros felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be dangerous, but for the first time in weeks, he could see a path forward, a chance to salvage the dream of a truly united future. The Unity rally concluded without incident, Hewitt and Zoltak's assassination plot, foiled by Theros and Eugene's carefully laid trap. In the following weeks, evidence of the conspiracy spread like wildfire through both human and Andorian communities. The extremists' support crumbled as their true motives were exposed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Theros and Eugene shifted their focus to the monumental task of integration. They knew that lasting change would require more than just laws and proclamations. It demanded a fundamental shift in how their peoples viewed one another. "We need to start with the children," Eugene said, spreading architectural plans across his desk. "A place where the next generation can learn side by side, free from the prejudices of the past." Theros nodded, his antennae twitching with cautious optimism. The Interspecies Academy. Months of planning culminated in a crisp autumn morning. A gleaming building stood in the heart of New York City, its design an elegant blend of human and Andorian aesthetics. A small crowd gathered for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a mix of hopeful faces and wary glares. Among them stood Rin, his hand resting protectively on his daughter Era's shoulder. The young Andorian's eyes were wide with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "Are you sure about this?" Rin whispered to Theros. "After everything we've been through?" Theros met his lieutenant's gaze. "If we don't take this step, everything we fought for was for nothing." As the doors opened, Ara found herself swept into a sea of unfamiliar faces. Human children stared openly at her blue skin and twitching antennae. Some whispered and pointed, while others averted their eyes entirely. A boy with sandy hair and freckles pushed through the crowd, his lip curled in disgust. "My dad says you don't belong here, alien," he sneered. Ara's antenna drooped, but before she could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "Leave her alone, Michael." A girl with dark curls and determined eyes stepped between them. "My father says we're supposed to learn from each other." Michael's face flushed red. "Stay out of this, Emily. You don't know what they're really like." A teacher's stern voice silenced the brewing argument. "That's quite enough. Everyone to your assigned classrooms now." As the days passed, Ara found an unlikely ally in Emily. The two girls bonded over a shared passion for science, spending hours poring over star charts and discussing the possibility of interstellar travel. Even Michael's hostility began to thaw. During a group project on comparative biology, his curiosity got the better of him. "So, do your antennae actually do anything?" he asked Ara hesitantly. Ara's face lit up. "They help me sense changes in air pressure and electromagnetic fields. Want to see?" Slowly, tentatively, understanding began to grow. But not everyone shared in this progress. A series of bomb threats sent shockwaves through the school community. Theros and Eugene found themselves working tirelessly once again, this time to establish an interspecies security force. "We can't let fear derail everything we've accomplished," Eugene insisted during a tense meeting with the school board. Theros nodded grimly. "We've come too far to turn back now." As the first year drew to a close, Juliet, the school's newly appointed curriculum designer, presented her vision for the future. "We need to go beyond simple coexistence," she explained, her eyes shining with passion. "Our students must truly understand each other's histories, cultures, and ways of thinking." On graduation day, Ara stood tall alongside Emily and Michael. As she looked out at the diverse crowd, she saw not just the faces of her classmates and their families, but the first glimpse of a truly integrated future. In orbit above, construction began on the joint Andorian human space station, a symbol of cooperation and a launching point for a new era of exploration. For Theros and Eugene, it represented the next great challenge in their quest for lasting peace between their peoples. The Dawn Chaser gleamed against the starry backdrop, its sleek hull a testament to human and Andorian engineering prowess. On the observation deck of the orbital station, Theros and Eugene stood side by side, watching as the final preparations for launch unfolded. "It's hard to believe we've come this far," Eugene murmured, his eyes fixed on the ship that would carry their hopes into the unknown. Theros' antennae twitched in agreement. "A joint deep space mission. Our peoples united in exploration. It's more than I dared dream when we first met." Down in the Dawn Chaser's command center, Commander Zaris ran her blue fingers over the smooth control panels. Her voice was clipped as she addressed her human counterpart. "Dr. Campbell, status report on the xenoanthropology equipment?" Emily looked up from her station, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "All secure, Commander. We're ready for whatever first contact scenarios we might encounter." Zaris nodded curtly, her eyes narrowing. "Let's hope your human cultural expertise doesn't lead us astray out there." Emily bit back a retort, reminding herself of the delicate balance they needed to maintain. She glanced across the bridge to where Ara was calibrating the long-range sensors. The young Andorian caught her eye and offered a reassuring smile. In the ship's engineering bay, Michael Morgan wiped his hands on a rag, admiring the sleek lines of the prototype FTL drive. A voice crackled over his comm. "Morgan, report to the flight deck for final pre-launch checks." As Michael made his way through the ship's corridors, he passed Alana, Zaris's daughter. The teenage Andorian's fingers danced over a holographic star chart, her brow furrowed in concentration. Excited for the big launch, Alana? Michael asked. Alana's antennae twitched. Excited, nervous. I just hope I can live up to everyone's expectations. Michael's expression softened. You and me both, kid. Back on Earth, Rin stood before a gathering of human and Andorian dignitaries. Today marks a new chapter in our shared history, he began, his voice carrying across the assembly. As the Dawn Chaser embarks on its mission, we must continue the work of integration here at home. In the crowd, Martin Hewitt scowled, his fists clenched at his sides. Nearby, Visra, the Andorian separatist leader, watched with barely concealed disdain. On the Dawn Chaser's bridge, the crew strapped themselves into their acceleration couches. Zaris's voice rang out, steady and clear. All stations, report readiness for launch. As each section called in their status, Emily felt a flutter of anticipation in her stomach. Years of preparation had led to this moment. She thought of her father watching from the station, of all they had fought for to make this mission possible. Dawn Chaser, you are cleared for launch, came the voice of Mission Control. Godspeed and safe travels. Zaris nodded to her helmsman. Take us out, nice and easy. The ship's engines hummed to life, a perfect fusion of human and Andorian technology. As the Dawn Chaser pulled away from the station, Emily caught Era's eye. The Andorian gave a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of the momentous journey ahead. The stars stretched into lines of light as the Dawn Chaser accelerated, leaving the familiar confines of the solar system behind. Humanity and Andorian kind's first joint mission of deep space exploration had begun, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and unanswered questions of two species learning to coexist in a vast and uncharted universe. The Dawn Chaser's bridge hummed with tension as it cruised through the inky void of deep space. Years had passed since their historic launch, and the initial excitement of their mission had given way to a simmering unease. Commander Zaris's antennae twitched as she studied the sensor readouts. Her voice cut through the silence. Anomalous energy signature detected, bearing 047 Mark II. Emily looked up from her station, brow furrowed. Commander, that's well outside our planned survey route. Zaris's eyes narrowed. This reading, it bears similarities to Andorian technology. We must investigate. With all due respect, Emily countered, our mission parameters are clear. We can't just... Can't what, Dr. Campbell? Zaris interrupted, her tone sharp. Can't pursue a lead that might be of vital importance to my people? The air grew thick with unspoken accusations. Michael shifted uncomfortably at his post, while Alana's fingers hovered over her navigation console. Emily took a steadying breath. Our directives come from the Joint Human-Andorian Initiative. We have a responsibility. To whom? Zaris demanded. To some bureaucrats light years away? Or to the pursuit of knowledge? Alana's voice quavered as she spoke up. I agree with my mother. We should investigate. Michael's eyes hardened. You can't be serious. We have a mission to complete. A human mission? Alana shot back. The argument escalated rapidly. Before anyone could react, Michael lunged across his station towards Alana. Emily threw herself between them, while Zaris yanked her daughter back. Enough, Zaris roared. Her voice dropped to a dangerous calm. As commanding officer of this vessel, I am exercising my authority. Plot a course for the anomaly. Emily's face paled. Commander, please, think about what you're doing. But Zaris had made her decision. Communications, cut all transmissions to Earth. We can't risk interference. As the Dawn Chaser altered course, Emily caught Michael's eye. Their shared look spoke volumes. This felt like a setup, a power play they hadn't seen coming. Days passed in uneasy silence as they approached the uncharted system. Sensor readings grew increasingly bizarre, hinting at technology far beyond their comprehension. Zaris paced the bridge, her excitement palpable. Do you see, Campbell? This could change everything for my people. We're freeing ourselves from human limitations. Emily's reply was cold. This mission was about cooperation, not supremacy. Alana's voice wavered as she called out. Multiple structures detected on the inner planets. They're massive. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that stole the breath from every crew member. Sprawling cities of impossible geometry stretched across alien landscapes. Architecture that defied known physics loomed in crisp detail. "By the spirits," Zaris whispered. Their awe was short-lived. Alarms blared as weapons locked onto the Dawn Chaser. Emily's fingers flew across her console, accessing deep memory banks. "Wait, I recognize these codes. They're connected to human databases." The firing ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Zaris's face contorted with conflicting emotions. It seems we may have both been wrong about our origins." As they prepared for their descent to the planet's surface, the weight of their discovery pressed upon them. Emily watched Alana hesitate, torn between loyalty to her mother and the friendship she'd forged. "We follow protocol," Alana said quietly, not meeting Zaris's eyes. The away team assembled in the shuttle bay, a mix of human and Andorian crew. As the doors hissed open, revealing the alien world beyond, they stood united by their shared uncertainty. Whatever awaited them on the surface had the power to redefine not just their mission, but the very nature of their civilization's shared history. The alien world stretched before them, a tapestry of impossible geometries and shimmering structures that defied comprehension. Commander Zaris stepped onto the planet's surface, her blue skin tinged with an otherworldly glow from the unfamiliar atmosphere. Behind her, the divided Dawn Chaser crew followed, weapons raised and muscles tense. "Fan out," Zaris ordered, her voice tight with anticipation. "But remember, we're here to make contact, not start a war." Emily hung back, her eyes darting between Zaris and the alien cityscape. She tapped her communicator, praying for a signal. "Dawn Chaser, do you copy? We need to abort this mission immediately." Static crackled in response. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The ground beneath their feet vibrated, and a section of what they had assumed was solid ground began to shift and reconfigure. The crew stumbled back, raising their weapons instinctively. "Hold your fire!" Zaris shouted, her antennae twitching wildly. From the reconfigured ground, a being emerged. It was tall, with a form that seemed to blur the lines between organic and synthetic. Its body shimmered with patterns of light that pulsed in complex rhythms. The alien's voice resonated in their minds, bypassing spoken language entirely. "We have awaited your return, children of the stars." Zaris stepped forward, her earlier bravado replaced by a mix of awe and confusion. "You know us?" The being's form rippled, and suddenly, holographic projections filled the air around them. Images of DNA strands, star maps, and evolutionary trees danced before their eyes. "Your genetic codes sing a familiar song," the alien explained. "Human, Andorian, two branches of the same ancient tree." Emily's scientific mind raced to process the implications. "Are you saying we're related?" The alien's form pulsed with affirmation. "Long ago, your ancestors left this world, seeded across the galaxy. You have evolved, changed, but the core remains." Zaris sank to her knees, her worldview shattering. All this time, fighting over our differences. Back on the Dawn Chaser, alarms blared. Michael's voice crackled over the comms. "Commander, we've got incoming. Multiple ships on an intercept course." Alana's fingers flew over the controls. "It's Visra's forces. They're demanding we surrender the ship and all data on the alien civilization." The away team's communicators burst to life with Theros's urgent voice. "Zaris, Emily, can you hear me? We're en route with a diplomatic team. Whatever you do, do not engage Visra's forces." On the planet's surface, the alien being's form flickered with concern. "Your conflict threatens the balance. You must find unity, or the cycle will begin anew." Emily looked at Zaris, their earlier animosity forgotten in the face of this revelation. "Commander, we need to get back to the ship. Our peoples need to know the truth." Zaris nodded, her face set with renewed purpose. "Agreed. But first," she turned to the alien, "we request your help in mediating this conflict. Our civilizations aren't ready for this knowledge, but perhaps with your guidance." The being's form pulsed with agreement. "We will assist. The time has come for the children to return home. As they rushed back to the shuttle, the sky above them lit up with the flashes of weapons fire. The Dawn Chaser hung in low orbit, surrounded by Visra's attack ships. The fragile alliance between humans and Andorians teetered on the brink of collapse. Emily gripped the shuttle's controls, her fingers tightening. If we don't make it back in time... Zaris finished her thought. Everything we've worked for will be lost. The shuttle rocketed towards the embattled Dawn Chaser, carrying with it a truth that could reshape the future of two civilizations. But first, they had to survive the present. The shuttle hurtled towards the Dawn Chaser, its occupants gripping their seats as weapons fire lit up the space around them. Emily's fingers tightened on the controls as she executed a series of evasive maneuvers. Dawn Chaser, this is Commander Zaris. Hold your fire and prepare for emergency docking, Zaris barked into the comm. As they neared the ship, the alien being's form shimmered, its light pulsing in complex patterns. The attacking vessels suddenly powered down, their weapon systems going dark. What just happened? Emily asked, her eyes wide. Our new friend, it seems, Zaris replied, a note of awe in her voice. The shuttle docked, and the away team rushed to the bridge. They found Michael and Alana at their stations, tension etched on their faces. Commander, Visra's forces are demanding we surrender, Michael reported. Zaris straightened, her antennae quivering. Open a channel. Visra's face appeared on the console, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Zaris. Traitor, he spat. You've doomed our people to human subjugation. No, Visra, Zaris said, her voice steady. I've discovered the truth that will free us all. She gestured to the alien being, whose form now filled the bridge with a soft, pulsing light. Our ancestors, Visra, both human and Andorian. We are one people, separated by time and space, but united in our origins. Visra's expression faltered, confusion replacing anger. What trickery is this? Emily stepped forward, her scientist's mind racing. It's not a trick, Visra. We have genetic evidence, star maps, evolutionary data. Humans and Andorians, we're branches of the same ancient tree. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Alana's fingers flew over her console, transmitting the data to Visra's ships. It's true, she said softly. All this time, fighting over our differences, when we should have been celebrating our shared heritage. Michael's shoulders slumped as he processed the information. He turned to Alana, regret in his eyes. I'm sorry for how I acted earlier. I let fear cloud my judgment. Alana's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. We both did. On the display, Visra's face contorted with a mix of emotions. If this is true, everything we believed was based on incomplete information, Zaris finished. But now we have a chance to right those wrongs, to forge a new path together. A proximity alert sounded, and Alana's console lit up. Multiple ships incoming. It's the diplomatic team. The bridge erupted in a flurry of activity as they prepared to receive the newcomers. As Theros, Eugene, and the other leaders boarded the Dawn Chaser, they were met not with the expected scene of conflict, but one of unity. Zaris stood at the center of the bridge, flanked by both human and Andorian crew members. Welcome aboard, she said, her voice carrying a new weight of responsibility. We have much to discuss. In the hours that followed, the truth of their shared origins spread through the ship and the gathered fleet. The alien being's presence served as a constant reminder of the vast history that connected them all. As the initial shock wore off, a sense of possibility began to take hold. Theros, his eyes bright with renewed purpose, addressed the assembled leaders. Today, we stand at the threshold of a new era, he began. An era of cooperation, of shared knowledge and mutual growth. I propose we establish a galactic union dedicated to the harmonious vision of our ancient predecessors. Eugene nodded enthusiastically. Humanity stands ready to support this initiative. Together, we can forge a future brighter than any of us could have imagined alone. As plans for the Galactic Union took shape, Emily found herself staring out at the stars. The universe suddenly seemed both larger and more interconnected than she had ever dreamed. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see Alana, The young Andorian's face filled with wonder. "What do you think comes next?" Alana asked. Emily smiled, her mind racing with possibilities. "I think we've only just begun to explore the true frontier." The Dawn Chaser's engines hummed to life, ready to carry its united crew back to their home systems. As they prepared to depart, the alien being's form pulsed one final time, its message clear. The journey of reconciliation between these kindred races was nowhere near the end. It was, in many ways, only just beginning. The Dawn Chaser glided into Earth's orbit, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. On the bridge, Emily gazed at the blue-green planet below, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and anticipation. "Home," she whispered, glancing at Zaris. The Andorian commander nodded, her antennae twitching with impossibly strong excitement. "A new beginning for all of us." As they began their descent, the comm channels lit up with congratulatory messages from every corner of the globe. News of their groundbreaking discovery had spread like wildfire, igniting hope and curiosity across both human and Andorian populations. The landing pad at Starfleet headquarters was a sea of faces, human, Andorian, and everything in between. As the crew disembarked, they were met with thunderous applause. Emily spotted familiar faces in the crowd, her parents beaming with pride, Eugene standing tall beside a group of dignitaries, and even Martin Hewitt, now in civilian clothes, his expression unreadable. Theros stepped forward, raising his hands for silence. "Today," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd, "we stand on the precipice of a new era, an era of unity, of shared purpose, of—" A deafening explosion ripped through the air. Emily was thrown to the ground, her ears ringing. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw a figure in a dark cloak darting away. "Vizra!" Zaris growled, struggling to her feet. Emily's training kicked in. She crawled towards Theros, who lay motionless on the ground. Blood seeped from beneath him, staining the pristine landing pad. "Theros!" she cried, cradling his head. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Emily," he wheezed, "the Union, you must promise me." "I promise," she said, tears streaming down her face. "We'll make it happen. We'll honor your vision." His hand went limp in hers. Around them, the scene was one of devastation. Michael Morgan lay unconscious, his face badly burned. Alana knelt beside him, her own injuries forgotten as she tended to his wounds. Zaris let out a primal scream of anguish. "Humans," she snarled, rounding on the nearest security officer. "This is your fault. Your lax protocols." Emily stepped between them. "Zaris, stop! This isn't the way!" For a moment it seemed Zaris might lash out. Then her shoulders slumped. She looked at Alana, still tending to Michael, and something in her expression softened. "You're right," she said quietly. "We can't let this destroy everything we've worked for." As medical teams rushed in, Emily saw Eugene being led away, his face ashen with shock and guilt. Rin arrived, his usual swagger replaced by dogged grit. "I'll take it from here," he said, surveying the carnage. "We'll need to strengthen our security protocols, establish a joint task force." Emily nodded, her mind already racing ahead. "We'll need to address both populations, quell any potential backlash. And the Galactic Union?" "We'll proceed as planned," Rin finished. "It's what Theros would have wanted." As the sun set on that tragic day, Emily found herself in a quiet corner of the medical facility. She watched as human and Andorian doctors worked side by side, tending to the injured without regard for species. A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to see Juliet, the renowned xenoanthropologist. "We have work to do," Juliet said softly. "Are you ready?" Emily straightened, her grit hardening. "Yes," she replied, "for Theros, for all of us." Together, they walked towards the conference room, where the first steps towards healing and towards the Galactic Union would begin.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.